Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ke, Bhakti ke, Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhadale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Vishesha Srinivani Paschadistarne. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're hearing the last verse of the 26th chapter. King Paranjan goes to the forest to hunt. It is the 4th canto, verse number 26. Let's see. We're Chintamani, right? Yep. Tanme prasida surada krita kilbasashya. Swairam gatasya mrigayam vyasanatarasya. Kadevaram Vashagatam Kushamastravega. Virashta Pumshnam Usati Nabhajeti Kritye Tanme Prasida Surada Kritakilba Shashya Swaram Gatasya Mrigayam Vyavasatnat Turasya Kadevaram Vashagatam Kushamastra Vega Vishrasta Punshnam Ushati Nabhajeta Kritye Tanme Prasida Surada Kritakil Vyashasya Swaram Gatasya Mrigayam Vyavasnatarasya Kadevaram Vashagatam Kushamastra Vega Vishrasta Pumshna Ushati Nabhajeta Kritye Tanme Prasida Sarada Kritakil Bishashya Gatasya Mrigayam Yavasnatarasya Kadevaram Vashagatam Kushamastra Vega Vishrasta Pumshnam Ushati Nabhajeta Kritye Tanme Prasida Surada Kritakil Bishasya Swaram Gatasya Mrigayam Vyavasnatarasya Kadevaram Vashagatam Kushamastra Vega Vishrasta Pumshna Ushati Navajit Tat Tat Therefore may unto me Prasida be kind Surada intimate friend Kritakil Shashya having committed sinful activities Swaram independently Gatasya who went Mrigayam hunting Vyasana Aturasya being influenced by sinful desire Ka what? I'm sorry, what woman? Devaram the husband Vashagatam under her control Kushuma Astravega pierced by the arrow of Cupid Vishrasta scattered Pumshnam his patience Ushati very beautiful Na never Bhajata Bhajeta would embrace Kritye improper duty. Translation. My dear Queen, due to my sinful desires, I went to the forest to hunt without asking you. Therefore, I must admit that I have offended you. Nonetheless, thinking of me as your most intimate subordinate, you should still be very much pleased with me. Factually, I'm very much bereaved, but being pierced by the arrow of Cupid, I'm feeling lusty. But where is the beautiful woman who would give up her lusty husband and refuse to unite with him? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Both man and woman desire one another. That is the basic principle of material existence. Most everybody will agree with that sentence. Women in general always keep themselves beautiful so they can be attractive to their lusty husbands. When a lusty husband comes before his wife, the wife takes advantage of his aggressive activities and enjoys life. Generally, when a woman is attacked by a man, whether her husband or some other man, she enjoys the attack, being too lusty. In other words, when one's intelligence is properly utilized, both the intellect and the intelligent person enjoy one another with great satisfaction, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:9-45. Yanmaitunadi grihamedi sukham hitucham kandu yanena karayor ivaduka dukam. The actual happiness of the karmis is sex life. They work very hard outside the home, and to satiate their hard labor, they come home to enjoy sex life. King Puranjan went to the forest to hunt, and after his hard labor, he returned home to enjoy sex life. If a man lives outside the home and spends a week in a city or somewhere else, at the end of the week, he becomes very anxious to return home and enjoy sex with his wife. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada's driving home this point. Yanmaitanadi grihameni sukham hitucham. Karmis work very hard simply to enjoy sex. Modern human society has improved the materialistic way of life simply by inducing unrestricted sex life in many different ways. This is most prominently visible in the Western world. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 26th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Puranjan Goes to the Forest to Hunt and His Queen Becomes Angry. Could we pray for some mercy, please? Om Jnana Timarandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurn Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Tat Sat. So my name is Rajendranandana Dasa, if anybody doesn't know me. And as they say in some meetings, with a slight variation, I'm a recovering Nityabada, an eternally conditioned soul. Not really eternally, but I've been conditioned since time immemorial, which is really inconceivable to comprehend. It's a long time. But having been conditioned since time immemorial, I'm definitely one of countless living entities in this material world that has been tossed back and forth like a volleyball, a ping pong ball, a soccer ball, whatever kind of analogy you want to give or take. I've been kicked a lot. And what does it mean to be a conditioned soul? I hold on tightly to the false ego. What does the false ego mean? It means I identify with this body and mind. But by the mercy of my spiritual master and the Lord, something very rare has happened. Brahmananda Bhagavan Kon, how's it go? Brahmananda Ji Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. Somehow or other, I've come in contact with the pure devotee of the Lord, and he is in the process of opening up my eyes, removing the cataracts from my eyes, and thus I can say I'm a recovering Nityabada. So very fortunate. And so what? Who cares you're identifying with the body and mind? What else does one do in this world? Well, it's a big problem. Because when one identifies with I and mine, then one causes so much suffering. Because we don't know how to be happy in this world in the bodily concept of life. Don't have a clue. The symptoms that manifest for anybody who is in the bodily concept of life is mentioned by the Lord in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Ichadvaisa samutena dvandamohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti param tapa. O Skyana Bharata, O conquer the foe. All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So, this purport is dealing primarily with the desire, with lust. And this is the symptom of a diseased mentality, diseased, contaminated consciousness. People don't think that Cupid is a reality. They think it's something that's put on Valentine's cards or what have you. But in the absolute truth as presented by the Vedic scriptures, it is said that all the energies of the Lord are personified. And it's not that you just, become attracted to someone automatically. There's actually a servant playing his part to try and help us fulfill our foolish desires and eventually become tired of them and then begin to inquire, why am I suffering? Who am I really? But that person is Cupid. He's got his bow and arrow and he can pierce us through any of the 5 senses with his arrows. And he can incite the lust. And this society, this so-called culture that we find ourselves in, it is simply based upon lust and sex desire. People work harder, like anything. And what reward do they look forward to? Money's nice, power's nice, sex, you gotta have it. Srila Prabhupada said, all these skyscrapers, they're all phallic symbols. It's the male trying to impress the female. It's just like any species. Any and practically all species, they have the dance between the male and the female. And as such, this world is known as Maitunya Agara. Did I say it right? Maitunya Agara. You go to jail, you might get handcuffed, you get put behind bars. But that which handcuffs us in the material world, that keeps us bound, hand and foot, is sex desire. And it's very difficult to pick the lock on those handcuffs. In fact, it's said, Daivayesha Gunamayi Mamamaya Dharatya. Basically, it's impossible. On one's own, you're not going to untie yourself. You're not going to escape out of the jail, out of the prison of Maya and sex desire. Even those who realize the futility of the temporary pursuit, this pursuit of temporary sense gratification, and aspire for spirituality, 99% of them, they're going for Brahman impersonalism. That's what is all pervasive in Kali Yuga. And Srila Prabhupada says that impersonalism inadvertently promotes sex desire. Because nothing versus something. And the reality of it is, even when you attain perfection, which is very rare, we talk about becoming a devotee is rare, it's also very rare attaining the Brahman realization, self-realization, transcendental to the influence of the modes of material nature. But even if you do attain that after many, many, many hard lives of struggle and penance, austerities, after some time in Brahman, in eternality, where one is not aware of one's individuality, no activity, just being, talk about self-isolation, at a point, desire sprouts up in the heart, within the consciousness. And not knowing about the transcendental Vaikunthas above and beyond Brahman, the only place one can reposit their desire is in the material world. Go back and try it again. And there's no telling how many times we've rotated through how many creations in this cycle of samsara and uselessly trying to be happy through sex desire. No telling. That's why it said nitya bada. And the reason why the desire is there, the sense desire, the lust, is because ultimately everything comes from Krishna. It's the very first verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which kicks out all illusion and all cheating religions or propensities. You just get the pure, unalloyed truth here. And it's not necessarily soft-pedaled. But everything comes from Krishna, including lust. But there is a world of difference between the lust that is in pure consciousness of the servants of the Lord and in the Lord Himself, as manifest in the spiritual kingdoms, or when He descends to this material world to show us what it's like in His abode. It is love, selfless, unexploitive, simply the desire to please the beloved. And we're made in the image of Krishna. We are part and parcel of Krishna's marginal energy, spiritual energy. And in a minute quantity, we have His qualities. But when we give up the purity of lovingly reciprocating with the Lord and those favorable to the Lord, the family, friends, and servants of the Lord, when we give that up, being diseased and it would be a source of disturbance, then we're not fit to associate directly with the Lord in the kingdom of God, and we are allowed to play out these desires in the material world. And when the pure consciousness of the living entity descends into the material world, cast into the material world, then that pure love becomes polluted by the material energy. Embracing the false ego, one thinks, I can control and I can enjoy. And it will always be through the outlets of the senses and the mind of whatever species you find yourself in, whether it's demigods or insects. That love, which is within us, which is an innate, eternal part of us, is never lost. It's simply perverted. It's simply polluted. And that lust, Krishna explains to Arjuna, it's in the senses, it's in the mind, it's in the intelligence. Basically, it's everywhere you look in this present day and age. Very difficult to see beyond the smiling, beautiful, alluring opposite sex on the billboards, the movies, the walking in the street, etc., etc. Very difficult. One has to be a little bit awake to appreciate this. If you don't understand that you're suffering, then you don't have the impetus to ask, isn't there something better than this? And even those who understand it, so many people know life is full of suffering and hardships. But unless you get the association of a devotee who will share the message of Godhead with you, then you can't comprehend, you can't make this stuff up. Because it's beyond this material world. That's what makes it inconceivable. It has to descend, it has to be offered, and you have to accept it to some degree. And thus begin to apply the teachings. One should become sober. One should control the senses and mind and become attached to the process given to us that will break the chains, that will cleanse the consciousness and help us be free of the bondage of this world and all the misery that's part and parcel of it. So it is a big challenge, no question. That's why Srila Prabhupada said, don't be surprised when you see somebody give up and leave. Be surprised when you see somebody with the determination to stick it out. Hell or high water, whatever it takes, I'm going for the lotus feet of the Lord. I'm trying, and I'm not trying to become something I'm not. I'm trying to become who I really am, an eternal servant of the servants of Krishna. One time a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, why is it being in Krishna consciousness we sometimes fall in Maya? And Srila Prabhupada said, you're always in Maya, and sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness. That's the mercy of the devotees and the mercy of the spiritual master. Yasha prasada bhagavat prasado. By their mercy, they can give us shelter. They can guide us. Our attempts to serve the Lord are so faulty. And in the lower stages, impure. Inadequate. But the devotee of the Lord can take that service, be pleased with that service, and he can offer it to the Lord. He can pray to the Lord, please accept the attempts of this sincere devotee. The pure devotees, they see the spark of Krishna consciousness and they simply want to fan it. They want to help everyone become reinstated in the love for Krishna that's within us. It drives them in a way that a materialist cannot understand. Because in the material world, that motivation of sex desire, it's always broken. It's always obstructed. It's always dissatisfying. If not immediately, because sometimes there is just a tiny little relief, the excitement of the chase, this and that. Prabhupada's referring in the beginning of the purport how a woman can be excited that somebody wants her so much that he will be forceful in courting her or engaging in the activities of sex with her. And of course, that's a generalization. If anybody in the audience has a problem with Srila Prabhupada stating a generalization about the way sex attraction works between men and women, that's okay. It's a generalization. It's not applicable to everyone. And especially not to devotees who are advancing in the process of Krishna consciousness. Even in the beginning, when you get the taste in these wonderful kirtans, or when you have somebody channeling the message of the Lord, being empowered by the spiritual master, the taste, the inspiration, the feelings of devotion that stir within the heart, nothing of this world compares to it. What to speak of when you climb the rungs of the ladder of Bhakti and become steady in your devotion, attached to hearing. I'd much rather hear Shastra than eat. Last night I gave a class to Kazakhstan in the Zoom, and it was interesting. I was talking a little bit on this same thing, that the devotees are so driven, we are happy to give up sleep and eating in the pursuit of the pleasure of Krishna. And sure enough, Krishna tested me. OB is not that much different than PB. It's practically every night there's some loud, drunken fools pursuing happiness, waking me up in the middle of the night, and being unable to go back to sleep, I'm allowed to chant in my bed, waiting for sleep to descend. But one who is tasting the nectar of the holy names, tasting the nectar of surrendering to and serving the spiritual master and the Lord, he'll kindly accept whatever is thrown at him. He will tolerate whatever garbage others throw at him, or that comes up from the heart and the swamp of the mind. Having been here since time immemorial, we have no clue how many desires we've racked up, just waiting to bubble up like the bubbles in the swamp. And as Balaram Prabhu yesterday nicely said, quoting Rupa Goswami, if one can tolerate such urges, such desires, and Chatura reminded me that Srila Prabhupada said, tolerate and be peaceful. It's not just that we're gritting our teeth. That's the beginning stages, where it's tough, but I have faith. I see those who have advanced, who have that which I want. But you come to a point, by the mercy of Krishna, you see it for what it is. Looks nice, but heck, so does a Venus flytrap to the insect. It's beautiful, but land in it, it shuts. Or the Vedic scriptures say the lotus, very beautiful. Honeybee can get so intoxicated in the lotus. No other flower smells like the lotus. Magnolias come, in my opinion, a little close, but that freshness, that wetness of the fragrance, kind of indescribable. Nothing comes close. So intoxicated in that lotus, when the sun goes down, the lotus closes and the bee can lose its life. So that's the way it is with this sex desire. And it wasn't that long ago. It was a few classes ago. We went through all the different senses and the way in which different species show that their demise is caused through their attachment or attraction through any one of the senses in this material world. We won't repeat that. But if you want to get a hit of sobriety and hear why the sages condemn the illicit association with women, yet they glorify the Lord's association with the cowherd girls in the rasa dance, go to chapter 1, the Chaitanya Bhagavat, with the purports by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, and you will have 13 pages of all the verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam dealing with what we're simply indicating in this short class. One who is Shrutidar, who has a photographic memory, I've heard it once and I don't lose it. Amazing. He does this purport and gives 13 pages, numbers, meaning reference where they come from, and gives the quotes from the 2nd canto to the 11th canto, 12th canto. I didn't fast forward. It's been a while since I read it. Very sobering. I'm just going to read one of the little sections from Kapila's teachings, and then I'm going to flip it if you'll allow me. 3, 31, 32 through 42, 10 verses. Lord Kapila Dev says to his mother Devahuti, if therefore the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people, engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the palate, the tongue, he again goes to hell as before. He becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, his good fortune, and all such opportunities. One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who's no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. And Maya is so expert. The man thinks he's got her in his palm. And in reality, it's the other way around. Gosh, have I seen that in my 10 years of dealing with the public. Millions of people passing before me. You know, the big macho man wrapped around the little finger. The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women. At the sight of his own daughter, Brahma was bewildered by her charms and shamelessly ran up to her in the form of a stag when she took the form of a hind, female deer. Amongst all kinds of living entities begotten by Brahma, namely men, demigods, and animals, none but the sage Narayan, Narayan, is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of a woman. Just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of woman, who by the mere movement of her eyebrows can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman, for such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway of hell for the advancing devotee. And I don't think I need to delineate. Household life is the one ashram out of the four that you have some license to associate with and engage in some sense gratification under restrictions. Otherwise, for the rest of us, the woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. Old days when they hunted with bows and arrow, they would play a musical tune on a flute, some kind of wind instrument, and the deer would become attracted to it, coming closer. So, sober, but the real deal. So what to do? How to become healthy, fixed in Krishna consciousness. It's all about seeing everything in proper perspective. Srila Prabhupada, I'll quote Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he sees all men as the servants of the Lord and all ladies as maidservants of Krishna. Or as Srila Prabhupada would say, devotees should see all the female devotees as Krishna's gopis. And we hear from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and other scripture that, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the only enjoyer. And being the creator of all living entities, those who have male or female forms, but those in the women species, the women form, they are Krishna's. And if they so desire to reciprocate in loving service of the Lord, they're His wives, His girlfriends. And anybody else claiming one for themselves and their own personal enjoyment, they're the thief, they're the fool, and they will suffer. If Krishna is not in a relationship between man and woman, it is fraught with misery. This love and hate that I first quoted starting out, it's so close to each other. Two sides of the same coin. Love can flip right into hate so easily. I don't have to elaborate on that. But with the amount of separation and divorce, if they even get married, that we see in the world today, that's easy to understand. So, we are the eternal servant of Krishna. That's a fact. Everyone is the eternal servant of Krishna. And if we will familiarize ourselves with, if we will hear, repeat, remember the glorious activities of Radha and Krishna, or Krishna and any of his devotees, any of his pastimes, then the heart becomes cleansed and we see that we're simply meant to be an assistant, a servant to facilitating Krishna's enjoyment. Would you like to hear about Radha and Krishna's swing pastime? This is a perfect example. You want to hear about loving reciprocation, about what real love is about? I'd love to share it if you don't mind. Because this is how this blows away any of the attraction or any of the tales, any of the movies, any personal attempt you might make to be happy through lust, sense gratification, and sex desire. Here's where it all comes from. This is it in its purity. And let's see what we hear. Surrounded by the Sakhis, Krishna came out of the Kunj, and the honeybee-like glances of his beloved one, Srimati Radharani, drank the honey of his sweetness. It was as if millions of cupids being defeated by Krishna's beauty worshipped a drop of the beauty of his toenails. Looking at Radhika, Krishna placed his left arm on her shoulder, making her shiver in ecstasy, like a golden lotus flower shivering on the high waves of an ocean of sweetness. From both sides, Sakhis handed Radha and Krishna betel leaves. Radhika, took one of the fingers of her left finger and put it in Krishna's mouth. So you can see as they're standing there, close together, sitting as they would be, to take her left hand would be very easy to offer the betel nut. And then Krishna, with his right hand, put betel leaf in her mouth. Krishna shaded Radhika's beautiful face by leaning over her, and with his crown gave shade to cover her from the sun. Radha and Krishna looked like a rain cloud and the lightning on earth, on top of which were two moons, their faces being compared to moons, that shone even in daytime, always causing the blue lotus eyes of the fair gopis to blossom. Seeing the moons of Radha and Krishna's faces rise, the Chakravaka birds became sad. The peacocks blissfully began to dance. The swans became afraid, and the male Chakura birds became very happy. These contradicting moods of joy and sorrow are a natural creation of the Lord. In other words, this excitement one gets with chasing the opposite sex, what to speak of the sex act and the exhilaration of the momentary release of energy, and then the nothing of that sort in the spiritual world. It's ever variegated variety, ever increasing, simply by putting his arm around her shoulder, or her simply looking at the Lord with a glance from the side. These things create loving sentiments, loving ecstasies that we can only hear about and pray to understand someday. Slowly, Radhika and Krishna walked over the path that was shown to them by Vrinda Devi, bringing them to a playground named Varsha Harsha, the joy of the rainy season. In the spiritual world, all 6 seasons are there and can be enjoyed by the Lord and His devotees on any given day. Spring, summer, fall, winter, and the 2 in between, rainy season and the other one. So they went to the rainy season, being defeated billions of times in beauty by Radha and Krishna, who were like the rain cloud and the lightning on the ground. The rain cloud and the lightning in the sky thought, we're not qualified to stay above Radha and Krishna, but where shall we go? The whole firmament is pervaded by their splendor. Thinking in this sad way, they became white from crying drops of rain. They looked like an umbrella inset with gold, serving to protect Radha and Krishna from the summer heat, the clouds and lightning. The showers were like tears and discoloring symptoms of sattvika ecstasies. They offered praise to Radha and Krishna with soft, faltering voices of the rumbling of their clouds. In other words, these are all ecstatic symptoms of the clouds and the lightning, everything being personal, being conscious. They're experiencing this in their service to Krishna. When Radha and Krishna played in the Kadamba forest, the trees with their thousands of gradually ascending bluish branches and nice golden flowers that showered honey conquered the beauty of the rain clouds and the lightning. The very long jeweled platforms between these Kadamba trees gave pleasure to Krishna day and night, being showered by honey from the flowers and the trees that was protected by ever-wakeful honeybees. On each side of these platforms, supporting emerald balconies, were flower garlands hanging. From these beautiful branches, beautiful red ropes and set with pearls were hanging. They were holding up the swings that each had 2 golden seats on them, one for Radharani, one for Madhava, and they were swinging by a soft breeze. The maidservants artfully picked the stems off fragrant flowers and spread them over the seats of the swings, covering these petals with soft, thin sheets. With their nice fragrance and softness, these swings were able to attract Sri Krishna. Shyam saw the best of these swings, one with a flag on it, and climbed on it. It was as if ecstasy personified sat down on the swing that was served by the goddess of beauty. To get completely showered by the rain, Krishna pulled his beloved one, who held his hand on the swing and placed her facing him, like bliss personified facing a sleepless pond of love. The maidservants served Radha and Krishna by throwing flowers, performing arti to their lotus-like faces, singing, straightening their necklaces and Krishna's turban, and serving them pan and garlands. The maidservants standing on each side of the swing tied up their veils with their sashes, stepping back and forth to push the swing, bending their bodies as they pushed. 2 other fortunate gopis stood on each side of the swing holding tasty betel leaves in their hands, which they put in Radha and Krishna's lotus-like mouths whenever the swing slowed down. Other advanced maidservants, who had sweet character and who were floating in the current of divine love, showered Radha and Krishna with the best flower petals from their hands. Let me cut out a little of this because of time. I want to get to the actual swinging. It's quite nice. So, nothing could disturb Radha and Krishna's minds from this swinging festival. This was because Vrinda Devi had arranged everything for their pleasure. And the branches of the tree on which the ropes of the swing were hanging began to swing along, and the leaves and flowers could thus serve Radha and Krishna by fanning them. The flower garlands hanging in the branches that were strung in many different ways also swung along, and the honeybees were unable to catch them, though they carefully tried. These bees looked very beautiful as they buzzed and wandered along with these swinging garlands. Radha and Krishna wanted to swing faster, so they kicked off more speed with their feet, giving their sakis lots of loving bliss with their expert rising and descending. They looked very funny as they swung up and down. When Radharani was up, I'll skip that part. So, as they're swinging, Radha and Krishna saw their own reflections in each other's bodies without seeing each other. This made them very sad, and they sighed deeply. This breathing dimmed the shining of their mirror-like bodies, and not seeing the reflections anymore, they became happy. Then the ocean of playful sports, Sri Krishna himself began to push the swing faster, just for fun, making it go so high that Radharani touched the leaves of the branches of the Kadamba tree. She became afraid that she would fall and said, don't swing anymore. When Madhava heard this, he began to laugh, and instead of slowing down, he began to push the swing even faster. Sri Radhika's braid loosened, her veil sloped off her head, her ornaments became disheveled. Seeing that she could not break off the speed of the swing anymore with her feet, because she needed them to keep her sari from blowing up, Krishna began to laugh. His eyes were satisfied, and again he increased the speed so that Radharani gave up her seat and embraced him around the neck, which of course is exactly what Krishna wanted. In this way, the bodies of the divine couple, Yugala Kishore, that looked like a blue lotus flower and a golden champaka flower became one, and from that union, the fragrance of these flowers also emanated, piercing through the heavenly planets, ultimately reaching the nostrils of Padma, the goddess of fortune, and other residents of Vaikuntha. There's one other page, but I think I gave you a little taste. It is so sweet. The descriptions of Radha and Krishna, Krishna and his devotees in the spiritual world, it's what we're all looking for in this world, but we're not going to find it. If we keep in the association of devotees, we will hear of it. And if we keep hearing, keep chanting, keep serving, then we can realize these pastimes. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata tvaktvam deham punarjanma naiti mam eti sorjana. And by grace of Guru and Krishna, we will be allowed, taken by the spiritual master, to enter into the service of the Lord and his devotees in his kingdom. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Bhakti.
Yeah, that's okay. So, Prabhuji, when you were describing this, this insatiable lust, and it pervades our entire society, the absurdity of our current situation, I think, is evidence from. I used to see these ads in the newspaper. I don't read the newspaper anymore, but I would see these ads. And I was curious, and it's some new Swiss super high-tech method for rejuvenating the male.
Yeah.
So the target audience was men in their 70s and 80s. And I'm old enough. I get AARP magazine, and they're always. It's but the ingenious of all of this science and technology just to keep the sex life alive.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's like, okay, it's starting to fall apart. Why don't you just accept that fact and turn your attention to matters that will actually make you happy, instead of chasing this thing, which is doomed.
Yeah.
The Western mind is unbelievable in its pursuit of this sexual activity.
Western, Eastern, higher, lower, throughout the universe, actually. But yeah, if we don't give them the opportunity to hear, then they have no hope. We can't blame them. If it wasn't for the mercy of a devotee, where would we be? We would not know about this. I wouldn't be speaking about this. Yeah, I'm an old man body like you, and I'd still be, trying to dream of the, the days of youth. And so, that's if we will help the spiritual master spread the message, that's the fast track to getting the nectar that we're all anxious for.
Ready? A little poem.
Yeah.
About the swing.
Okay.
So there's picture, the painting, we've seen some of the paintings.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But they don't have all the gopis and everything around generally, but where blooming flowers spread their sweet perfumes, where clear Yamuna flows and songbirds sing, where all the land a lovely light illumes, Shri Radha and Shri Krishna gently swing. This idol of their love in Braja's bowers forever charms their dearest devotees, whose hearts Shri Krishna's sweetness overpowers, obscuring his prodigious potencies. Whatever in this world we know as love is just a shadow of the love they feel. The wise aspire to learn the secrets of devotion's path and taste that love ideal.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Any contribution? Yeah, beautiful. That's proper use of the ability to make poetry. Glorification of the Lord. It's the use of everything. So thank you for your association. Thank you for your attention and your patience. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki.